So I figured I'd go back and do another Q&A. You guys seem to really enjoy the Q&As. Remember, every single time I do one of these, you can leave a comment in the comment section with hashtag Q, the letter N, A, Q&A. You can also use the symbol, but I'm less likely to grab your comment because obviously I get a lot of comments on these videos, and usually I just filter by the search option Q&A with like the letter N. Starting off with Boogeyman. Do you think Spawn has a chance to be in Injustice 2 since none of the silhouettes look like him? What's interesting about the silhouettes is that a lot of them don't really have distinct features. So for example, obviously we know that Black Manta and Raiden look very, very distinct when we look at the silhouettes. And if we look at the in-game character select screen, we do see the tiny version of the silhouette we saw in the trailer, which kind of implies that it's Adam. All of the silhouette stuff seems very hard to read for me. Like, I don't really think it's worth putting a whole lot of stock in the silhouettes. I said this a while back. I originally thought that Raiden was actually a misdirect, and same with Black Manta. I'm not so sure anymore. I'm pretty sure Black Manta is going to be playable. I'm still not 100% convinced on Raiden, but I'm just going to assume that he is going to be playable. But as far as another character that we don't really see in those silhouettes, like for example Spawn, well, so far in every fighter pack we have had a guest character. We've had Sub-Zero in the first one. It looks like in the second one we're probably going to get Raiden, and we don't have any hints towards a Mortal Kombat character or any other type of guest character in the third pack, so if he is going to be a DLC character, I would probably hazard a guess that he will be in DLC Pack 3, but we're not exactly sure. Personally, for me, I wouldn't mind if we got Spawn, but I'm not a Spawn fan either, so it doesn't really impact me at the end of the day, but hopefully for all those Spawn fans out there, we do end up getting him in the game. Do you think that there could be another DC and Mortal Kombat game? The big problem with having a DC versus Mortal Kombat game is that it doesn't really work. You have Mortal Kombat, which is a traditionally very, very gory, brutal, and fatal world. It's funny, people talk about how DC is much darker than Marvel, but compared to DC and Mortal Kombat, it's not even close. So when you try to combine those two worlds, you end up taking the Mortal Kombat characters and you either make them look a little bit silly, or you take the DC characters and they're no longer really the same characters they used to be. The implementation of Sub-Zero, I think, in Injustice 2 was perfect. He has a little bit of gore stuff going on off camera with his, wind pose, but if you ask Mortal Kombat fans, a lot of people are still disappointed that he's in the game because he's not able to show off all of his traditional Mortal Kombat tendencies, and his look isn't true to his, original look from Mortal Kombat, or any of the looks he's had throughout Mortal Kombat. And these are problems they run into, or not really problems, but this is feedback they get when one character is put in Injustice 2. Imagine the type of feedback they would get if they made another DC versus Mortal Kombat game. On top of the previously mentioned problem of the story, the reason why Capcom is able to get away with doing Marvel vs. Capcom is because Capcom doesn't have their own fighting game. So when you get Marvel vs. Capcom, you're not comparing the Capcom side of the roster as to how they played in the previous Capcom title. Do you think they will/should re-release Vixen as a premiere skin for Beast Boy? Well, a while ago they did confirm that there weren't going to be any gender swaps in premiere skins, so I certainly don't think that's going to happen. Should it happen? I'm not sure. Not only would it take a whole lot of work from NetherRealm's perspective, but it also, I don't think, would accomplish much. Whilst Beast Boy and Vixen certainly have abilities that are much closer to each other than, say, Vixen and Cheetah, I certainly don't think that they're very comparable. Vixen kind of takes on the attributes of the beasts and things that she's channeling, where Beast Boy literally turns into them. And I think if they were on the same roster, I probably wouldn't premiere skin them together. I would much prefer them to be their own different characters, and sometimes that's not exactly an option, as we've seen from Injustice 2, Vixen didn't get her own character slot, and I'm fine with her being a Cheetah premiere skin if that's what's required to get her into the game. Deathstroke asks, do you think we'll get Arkham series premiere skin? Whilst this isn't something that NetherRealm has directly talked about, there is an Arkham Knight premiere skin, or not skin, but a character in the Injustice 2 mobile app. Usually when people ask these types of questions, people respond to them and say, well, premiere skins are supposed to be entirely different characters, and whilst that is mostly true, it's sort of also not true. You have the example of Power Girl, who's not exactly a different character. I mean, she is. She's also kind of not. For me, anyway, I feel like premiere skins are more or less supposed to be justified based on the voice lines rather than being an entirely different character. So if you had a premiere skin for an Arkham character, there would be a reason for the voice lines to be different because they had a different voice in Arkham games, and also because they could change up some of the voice dialogue options and perhaps even reference events directly from the Arkham series. That being said, of course, it's super doable for them to create an Arkham gear set and much more difficult for them to make an Arkham premiere skin. So I would certainly expect some Arkham gear pieces coming in the future. Get excited for that. Devin asks, what are the odds of Booster Gold appearing as DLC character. As awesome as that would be, I certainly don't think it's going to happen. Ed Boon actually specifically a long time ago, before we even saw any Injustice 2 footage, had said Booster Gold, like just said straight up no to Booster Gold. I forget exactly what the quote was, I might try to find it for a screenshot in this video, but he just straight up said no. Not only that, but Booster Gold really isn't that popular of a character. I mean, he's a popular character among comic book fans, but he really hasn't got the chance to shine in either games, animated shows even, live action TV shows, movies. He really just hasn't got a whole lot of screen time, so people haven't really had the time to adapt to the character and enjoy him the same way that they've been able to enjoy characters like Beast Boy through Teen Titans, and Beast Boy is even still up in the air. People aren't even sure if he's going to show up as a DLC character. I personally believe he will, but again, he's certainly not even one that we're expecting. So with that in mind, I don't think that Booster Gold has a very good chance. Khaled asked, do you think Constantine will be DLC? I certainly hope so. Constantine has been on, I think, all of my DLC videos, actually. No, that's right, Plane. I'll wait for you to fly over. I'm not recording a video or anything. Oh yeah, it's fine. And whilst my sample size for the character certainly isn't that large, what I have seen of the character has been quite enjoyable, and I think he would suit the Injustice 2 cast perfectly, making hilarious voice lines and interactions, and his gear set would also be pretty cool, being able to change out his coat and all of that stuff. His accessory could be his lighter, and yeah, I would be very happy with Constantine. Guardian Legacy asked, do you think after all of the characters come out as DLC, we can have one slot to make your own character or our own character like they shown before the game was actually done? I don't think they ever did say that. I know it sounds like a cool idea in theory, being able to make your own character, but traditionally in fighting games, it doesn't really work the way you want it to. In theory, it sounds fantastic, right? You get to create your own character, my very own fighting game character. But in actuality, in practice, usually what you either have to do is ban them from competitive play because you can get too crazy with their movesets, or they end up having to be movesets that are super cookie cutter and templates that you just get to kind of copy and paste among all your characters, at which point it just doesn't become very exciting. But as far as visually goes, that's also not really worth it. The amount of time and effort they would need to put in to be able to create a system for a create your own character that is actually interesting and exciting and well made and that work probably isn't worth it, considering these are very iconic characters in the DC lore, and most people are probably going to want to play as them anyway. And you've got so many different ways to customize them in your own particular way. So I certainly don't think a character creation is necessary, and I'm not even sure I would want to use it. And it probably wouldn't even work in competitive play. Irish German, a returning questionnaire. Questionnaire? Is that even? Questionnaire is not that's not the word that's used there, even remotely. That's not even correct. Questioner? Questioner. That's what we're gonna go with. Even though it would never happen in a million years, which Marvel character would you like to see as a DLC in Injustice 2? I think it would be cool to have Superman fight Thor, or to see Batman take on Spider-Man. Well, for me personally, one of the only reasons I'm interested in Marvel, not to start a Marvel versus DC fight, but I certainly prefer DC, that's just my personal preference. I have certain reasons for that I won't bother going into in this video because it will take up way too much time. That being said, if I could transport any character into the DC world, it would absolutely be Spider-Man. That's fine, Plane. You just fly over the house while I'm recording. That's okay. Spider-Man Homecoming has actually got me very interested in the MCU. Previously, I hadn't exactly been keeping up with the MCU because, again, I'm not a huge Marvel fan, but with the inclusion of Spider-Man, how could I not be interested? Also, last time I added somebody in my Q&A, I got a ton of questions about adding somebody again, so don't tell anyone. But yes, I will add you on PSN. Joshua asked, do you think that there is a chance that we could see a proper Batman Beyond character in Injustice 3? What do you think of the idea? Maybe it could work with your future idea. Well, it's certainly possible, but Batman is an incredibly iconic character, and showing the Batman Beyond character on artwork for Injustice 3 probably isn't the correct way to go, because they need to be able to market the game towards people who aren't into comic books and probably wouldn't understand why Batman is wearing a red symbol and why he looks notably smaller. Not necessarily smaller as in short, but doesn't look, you know, big and bulky, and he doesn't look like Batman. I mean, he looks like Batman, but you get my point. Lewis, in correct fashion with his Azrael picture, asked the question of, do you think Azrael will be skin or DLC? I'm not sure he will be either. I certainly don't think he's going to be a DLC character, but I think it's pretty likely he'll be a Premier skin, just based off some things that NetherRealm has said. If you haven't been paying attention, a few things that have been said is that Ed Boon himself even directly said that there were multiple characters that were cut from the game because they multiplied too many skill sets if that makes any sense. So the example he used is that they didn't want two characters who used swords in the game because their playstyles would end up either being too similar, or they just didn't want too many, like, almost duplicates on the roster. I mean, just look at Captain Cold and Sub-Zero and how differently they have to play in order to justify each other's presence on the roster. So you would either have to come up with a very, very unique playstyle for Azrael, or you could just totally make him a premier skin for Robin, which I think is far more likely. I think a cool storyline for Injustice 3 would be if Barry traveled back in time to stop the Joker nuking Metropolis, but in turn accidentally causes the deaths of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Cyborg, and Green Lantern. So Barry was left to lead a new Justice League throughout time to stop himself creating the new timeline. What do you think about this? Well, as interesting of an idea that is, it's an incredibly complicated one, and the thing is, this type of story needs to be told in a very linear way. It's a fighting game, so they have to be told in a fight-to-fight basis, and I think that type of storytelling, that in-depth jumping to different timelines, doesn't really lend itself to that. You also have to remember that this game is going to be played by a lot of people who aren't necessarily into comic books, but they're aware of the Batman character and, you know, some other DC characters, and that's what interests them in the game. So when you pitch them this story of dude who runs super fast, runs back in time, and, you know, causes all this stuff to change, it starts getting incredibly complicated, especially if the plot of the game revolves around you taking into different timelines and trying to stop yourself from creating events that have already happened. That's pretty difficult to explain to people. So I certainly don't think that that would happen, but it's certainly an interesting take on kind of a Flashpoint style story. Tony asks, would you like to see Martian Manhunter for DLC? I would. Well, I would as well. Unfortunately, or, you know, fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, I don't think NetherRealm is going to charge us for a character we've already purchased before. Martian Manhunter was a DLC character in the first game, and I don't think they'll make you pay for him again. That being said, we haven't paid for Miss Martian before, and I think that she would be an amazing DLC character, and I certainly hope that she gets her slot. That being said, I don't expect it, but again, here's hoping, right? Well, that's going to be it for the Q&A, other than one more question, which I'll get to in just a second. But if you do have any more questions, again, leave them in the comment sections, because I really like doing these Q&A videos, and you guys seem to enjoy them just as much as I enjoy making them, so that works out perfectly for me, because it's a really good format, and I enjoy it, so again, any more questions, hashtag Q&A in the comments. But the final question is actually going to be answered in tomorrow's video. I want to make a whole video about this. Blink Then Die asked, Sub-Zero with cape equal good or bad? Question mark. Again, I'm going to make a whole video about this tomorrow because I actually think it's a much larger topic than people realize, but I guess I'll see you then. Thank you guys for watching this video. My name has been Bilbzy, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.